Come on, Rockfin, any day now. Any day now. Okay, great. Thank you.
Doobie-doobie-doo. 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 I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. Doobie-doobie-doo. 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 I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. Doobie-doobie-doo. 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 I'm your host, sabrinasalvati.
All right. Happy Tuesday, guys. Welcome to Sabby Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you are new, I want to let you know that Sabby Sabs podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Thursdays for the Sabby and JB show, and you can catch me here on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and every other Sunday. Welcome back, guys. I hope you have had a great weekend. We have something a little bit different tonight, which I actually haven't done on this show before, unless I've been the one on the ground. But tonight, actually, we're going to cover part of that New Hampshire primary, and we're actually going to be joined by Eric Jackman. Eric Jackman is one of the co-hosts of Jackman Radio. He's actually already there on the ground. He's been taking pictures. He's been getting coverage. So later on in the show, we will be going to him, and we're going to hear from him what some of the voters have been saying. What does the level of support look like? So it's going to be kind of cool to kind of like just go to someone on the ground. And so that's not me for once. So that's going to be awesome. Shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rockfin, Twitter, and Rumble. And we're going to do the darn thing tonight. So let's go ahead and say hi to some peeps in the chat. Start at the beginning here. What is up? DC says she rolls the bones when she doubles down on killing folk with arm deals. Grim. Shout out to Danielle, says, hi, I think you mean Sabby. I'm a grandmother from Canada, never miss a show. Much love. Welcome, Danielle. Shout out to David, says, Sabby, did you see Keaton and Do Dissidents in New Hampshire the other day? I hope you watched it. It was really good. I have not seen that yet. Then we got a couple people that are out there on the ground in New Hampshire. I wish I was able to go, but I wasn't. Shout out to P. Smith, who's a Sabby member, said, did you know that in Iowa, Democrats changed their primary at the caucus to vote for Nikki? They can do that in New Hampshire. We're going to get into it tonight, guys. Shout out to Miguel, says, peace. What's going on? Sylvia, who's a Sabby member, says, hey, y'all. Shout out to Lawrence, who's a Sabby member, says, Shaka when the walls fell. Greetings, Larez. Sup, Sabrina, Eric, and Sabby fam. Bree attacked by who? AOC doubles down on cringe. Did you see any of Keaton's New Hampshire primary coverage? It was good. Smash the like, y'all. No, I have not seen it yet. I actually haven't watched any independent media probably for the past couple of days, actually. Been really busy around here, folks. Shout out to Hannah G, says, who's coming after Bree now? You'll find out. What's going on? Me want tacos. Me want tacos too. It is Tuesday. Me want some tacos. F homework. I'm watching Sabby today. Shout out to Teddy, says, how can AOC double down when she's never played a winning hand? Greetings, Arlene, says, somebody tell these fools the show is over and get the hell off the stage. Wrap it up. Greetings, CBC voter, says, happy Tuesday, Sabby Sabs. Shout out to Kyle, says, looking forward to seeing Eric. Shout out to different Eric, by the way, you guys. I know there's a lot of Erics that watch the show. I find it out via call-in, but different Eric. Shout out to Eric T. Red, who's a Sabby member, says, good evening, ladies and germs. Groucho Marx used to say that. Shout out to Teddy G, says, hit the like button. What's not to like? What's going on, Silver Surfer, says, peace, love, and tacos, Sabby. That would be a cool t-shirt. What's going on? Falsificationism says, woo! Shout out to Gamer for Life says, hello. Greetings, Red Six says, hello, Sabby. Shout out to Joe OWS. Bree attacked. Thank God she has a black belt in mental jujitsu. I hope she didn't hurt them too bad. Greetings, Saul says, I'm here. Welcome. Shout out to Lou says, evening comrades. This old bastard is feeling extra crochet-y today. Lot of days like that lately. I used to know how to crochet. I haven't done this in a long time, but when I was in middle school, I actually took home ec and they taught us how to crochet. Be a cool hobby to get back into, actually. Shout out to Randy, who's a Sabby member, says, good primary evening, Sabby comrades. Shout out to Desert Mantis, says, hello, sisters and brothers. Greetings, James, says, Sabby Sabs. Shout out to, make sure I'm not skipping over, Sharon, I was number 40 like. What are you? And shout out to Nikki's World says, hey, everyone. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get into it tonight. We're going to go ahead and give a shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron first. Thank you guys so much for your support. If you're interested in being a Sabby patron, I have 5 categories: Ultimate, Sabinators, Sabsters. There's also Sabbies, and of course, members. All of their names are listed here. You can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen there on the ticker. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate the love. People all over the world, join in. Start a love thing, a love train. People all over the world, everybody. A little bit of OJs for you folks. A little bit of OJs. All right, guys, what are we discussing tonight? Let's go ahead and get into that thumbnail. You know, I'm an old school music person. It's really interesting because obviously I didn't grow up during that time, but I really like old school music. And I think it's because of my parents. Like my parents, when I was growing up, they listened to the OJs. There was this group called the Gap Band, Cameo. You guys ever heard of these people? Like, you remember Cameo? They had that song, she's like candy. I can feel it when you walk. Hear it when you talk. I can't do his voice. He had a very unique voice. They used to listen to those peeps. Roger and Zapp. Computer love. Computer love. All right, tonight we are discussing Briahna Joy Gray is attacked yet again, this time by Zionists. We're going to get into that story. We're also going to discuss the New Hampshire primary race. And if you didn't hear earlier, we actually are going to go to Eric Jackman, co-host of Jackman Radio. He is actually on the ground in New Hampshire. So we're going to get to hear from him in reference to what some of these voters are saying, where some of those former Ron DeSantis supporters ended up. We're going to hear what's happening there on the ground. He already sent me a couple of pictures earlier today, so we'll get into that. I see a lot of discussion about OJs in the chat. And we're also going to discuss AOC doubles down. If you have not seen this interview, we're going to get into that tonight, and the problem with what has become of a lot of the social Democrats that said they would fight, obviously. And we're going to talk about what she's doubling down on. And if you have not seen this story, really cringe factor, Elon Musk and Ben Shapiro actually visit Auschwitz. We're going to get into that and some of the hypocrisy that goes along with that as well. Ellen says old school R&B is way better than current R&B. I agree. I like a lot of the old school like music. I don't know. I just feel like the beat is better. I feel like the lyrics are better. I felt like artists put a lot more into those songs like back then than compared to now. Like now, like songs are like what, like 2.5 minutes, right? I was growing up during the time, like I remember there was a band called Oasis. I don't know if everyone remembers these peeps. This was during the alternative music era. But there was this band called Oasis that basically looked like a 90s / emo, grunge, I don't give a F version of the Beatles. And they had this song called Champagne Supernova. The song was over 11 minutes long. That was a long song. A lot of people know their Wonderwall song, but Champagne Supernova, that was the jam because it was so long. Like, it was just musically, it was genius. Don't know what happened to those guys, though. I heard the brothers didn't really get along. All right, guys, let's go ahead and jump in and get started with the first story. AOC doubles down. So this interview with AOC is actually going viral on X. And if you have not seen it, you're going to see part of it now. And this is in reference to who should progressives support? Should their support go towards the candidates that actually align with their policy positions? Well, according to AOC, she thinks that you should just bend and grare it and still support Joe Biden. Let's get into it.
Had it or hit it, Joe Biden.
Hit it. You know, honestly, here's the thing. I think sometimes people want electoral politics to be, we overly identify with, it's like if you vote for someone, they have to be the embodiment of you.
All right, let's start with this. So I kind of understand where she's coming from, where some people just vote on someone like based on personality and not necessarily based on policy. Let's put that to the side for a second. I wouldn't say that your candidate has to be the embodiment of you, but I would say that obviously you should agree with them in reference to policy positions, especially key policy positions. So for me, there are certain things that I pay attention to. Does this candidate have a Black agenda? Does this candidate have a working class agenda? Does this candidate actually have something like living wage on their platform? How is this candidate on foreign policy? Do they want to continue these wars? Because I want a candidate that does not want to continue the wars. And number one of all, do they support genocide? Right now, Joe Biden is actively funding and participating in the genocide of the Palestinian people in Gaza. AOC here, who is supposed to be the Social Democrats, and according to DSA's handbook, and she was a DSA member as well, you are not supposed to support the state of Israel in reference to this conflict with Israel and Gaza. That is in their handbook. That Social Democrats, Democratic Socialists, support the BDS movement, boycott, divestment, and sanctions. So who is AOC, right? Because obviously, if you care about the issues and it's about the policies, and if you support something like Medicare for all, you support ending these wars, you support the BDS movement, you would not say, hit it, AOC. You would not tell your supporters to just go ahead and support Joe Biden. You would tell your supporters to support the candidates that align on those issues. Let's continue.
And that's actually something that I think Donald Trump provided to a lot of people, where it's like, if you voted for him and if you were a Donald Trump person, like you want, like it symbolized so much. But I think,
let's go back to this for a second, because this is a revealing moment.
Embodiment of you. And that's actually something that I think Donald Trump provided to a lot of people, where it's like, if you voted for him and if you were a Donald Trump person, like you want, like it symbolized so much. But
so let me explain to you what AOC is doing here. She's basically telling you that if you support a candidate that agrees with your policy positions, remember, Trump supporters supported his policies. They supported the fact that he came out and he spoke to working class people in the Rust Belt where Hillary Clinton chose not to do so. So just keep that in mind. Remember, Trump basically ran like a right-wing populist campaign where he did appeal to a lot of working class people. So what AOC is telling you, that if you do that, that's basically right-wing. This is where we are now, folks. You support the candidate that aligns with you in reference to policies, or you decide not to support a candidate because they don't align with you in reference to policy decisions. Now, all of a sudden, that's a right-wing move. This is something that I've noticed that the Democratic Party has done for quite some time. Anything that they disagree with, it's right wing. Similar to the Israel-Gaza issue, if you criticize Israel, it's automatically considered to be anti-Semitic. Democratic Party does something similar to that. If you criticize Joe Biden, we're going to talk about this tomorrow with the new controversy surrounding Charlemagne the God. If you criticize Joe Biden, all of a sudden that's considered to be right wing, as if you're not allowed to criticize members of the party that you voted for. Let's go on.
But I think what we have here in this situation is a more just honest thing. There are plenty of things that the president does that I completely disagree with. I think, right now what's happening in Gaza, I can't go on every single day seeing this. I don't associate myself with what's happening.
Two things here. If there are plenty of things that Joe Biden has done or does that you disagree with, why are you endorsing him? She didn't say there's one or two things that Joe Biden does that she disagrees with. She said there are plenty of things. It's just like if you're in a relationship with someone, I like to use the relationship references. If you're in a relationship with someone, and let's say, I'm going to say it from female perspective because I'm a female. Let's say you've been dating this guy. Let's say you guys have been dating for a couple of months, maybe almost a year. So you're almost at that 1 year mark, right? A crucial mark. And let's say you tell your best friend, there are plenty of things that he does that I just do not like or don't agree with. Why are you in the relationship? I understand if there's a few things here and there, you're not going to agree with everybody on everything. But if there are plenty of things that you have an issue with, why are you in that relationship? So I would ask that question to AOC. Why are you in this relationship with the Democratic Party, with Democrat establishment, and endorsing Joe Biden if there are plenty of things that he is doing that you disagree with? Now, she goes on to mention, I don't agree with what's happening in Gaza, but she basically says she doesn't associate herself with that. So when it comes to genocide, she is basically able to make the point to continue to support Joe Biden by disassociating herself with that conflict. Kind of like an out of body experience here. Let me just disassociate myself with the genocide that's happening in Gaza so I can sleep better at night for endorsing Joe Biden. Can't make this up. Then she goes on to say the B word.
I think, right now what's happening in Gaza, I can't go on every single day seeing this. I don't associate myself with what's happening. But at the end of the day.
But I don't agree with what's happening with the genocide in reference to Gaza. But how do you but genocide? It's not like I disagree with the fact that Joe Biden's, Build Back Better didn't go as far as it should have gone. That's one thing. And then you go on and you say, but he did do some of those things, get some of those things done on that list. That's one thing. It's another thing to but after genocide. What this tells you, ladies and gentlemen, is that AOC and the other members of the squad are going to defend and protect Joe Biden no matter what. And that is dangerous because what that means is that Joe Biden can do no wrong. You see this? Because how much further can you go than genocide? This is the problem with partisan politics. You defend your party regardless of what they are doing.
We have to acknowledge that we just can't allow this fascist movement to grow in this country. And
we can't allow a fascist movement to grow in this country. But Joe Biden hasn't done anything that's been fascist. Implementing mandates across the country for federal workers and for other employees, that's not considered to be fascist. Joe Biden is literally trying to rig the Democratic primary process. That's not fascist, AOC. The fact that he can change the primary process and make South Carolina the first state that he actively participates in. just so things will be better for him and his race. That's not fascist. It's not fascist for the Democratic Party and the DNC to basically remove people from the ballot because they want to just hand the nomination over to Joe Biden. That's not fascist.
And what I think is actually hopeful about our politics is that we can exist outside of electoral politics in organizing our communities and standing with our friends.
What organizing is AOC doing in the community? Because when I interview and speak to people that live in her district, I'm not hearing about these organizing events, this type of organizing that she says that she's doing. What type of organizing is she referring to? Where was AOC when we had all those marches for Medicare for all in over 50 cities across this country? She was out campaigning with Nina Turner. Where was she? Where was she? All the pro-Palestinian protests that have happened across the globe. Where was AOC during those protests? I didn't see her speaking at those protests. I saw Cornel West speaking at those protests. I saw Jill Stein speaking at those protests. Hell, Macklemore and Susan Sarandon have spoken at those protests. Claudia De La Cruz has spoken at those protests. Where was AOC when it came to organizing with the people on the outside? She's nowhere to be found.
And, you know, if it's coming down to this next election, for me, personally, the decision to vote is not a difficult one for me, because just because I'm voting for him doesn't mean that he embodies everything about me.
Right.
See, this is her trying to come up with excuses. Just because I'm voting for him doesn't mean he embodies everything about me. Let me explain to you why Justice Democrats was a sham. One of the things I showed on the show before was actually a video of Kyle Kulinski. You know, he was one of the co-founders of Justice Democrats, of him actually admitting that the reason why they created Justice Democrats was not necessarily to push back against the Democrat establishment. It was to push back against the rise of Donald Trump. He admits this. So if the creation of Justice Democrats was to push back against the rise of Donald Trump, that means that Justice Democrats' motto of going in and having a hostile takeover of the Democratic Party was a sham. The whole point of Justice Democrats was to push back against the Trump movement. That's what it was for. This is why they don't come out and support other candidates that are right on the issues when we look at progressive policies. And they're supporting people who are establishment candidates, because at the end of the day, it was all about pushing back against Donald Trump, not necessarily pushing back against the establishment in the Democratic Party. And this is why you have not seen them do this the entire time they've been in office. This is why they're not pushing back against the establishment of the Democratic Party. You got Jamal Bowman out here caving to a little bit of criticism about him defending Norm Finkelstein. Just like that, caved and said, oh no, I don't support this at all. Any little pushback, just cave. And let's remember that event in DC where Jamal Bowman said, we have to drag this guy over the finish line. They have to drag Joe Biden over the finish line. No, you don't. These people are not really Democrat. Justice Democrats have actually hurt the movement for Democratic Socialists of America. They really have. Because what they have shown you is that at the end of the day, these people weren't Democratic Socialists. These people were just liberals that wanted health care. Now, I'm sorry. And we're going to get into this tomorrow night when we talk about the discussion with Sam Cedar. Because at the end of the day, a lot of us that watched left independent media, particularly during the Bernie campaigns, I think a lot of times we thought, like these people aren't liberals. These people are progressives. They want to go a step further. They want universal policies across the country. But now you look back on it and you realize, and you'll see this tomorrow, you look back on it and you realize that these people were just liberals who wanted health care. That's it. That's why they can cave and tell you, but we don't want to get Donald Trump, so support Joe Biden. We don't want to get Donald Trump, so support Hillary Clinton. Meanwhile, you had Jill Stein out there. Meanwhile, this time you have Cornel West out there. You got Jill Stein out there again. You got Claudia De La Cruz out there. You have Dr. Shiva out there. You have all these other people who are running on progressive issues, but they're going to tell you to support Joe Biden. Justice Democrats killed the Democratic Socialists of America movement.
So that to me is where I'm at. But I think, it's people are going to get mad on the internet because that's what they do. But I think we just got to be adults about the situation and realize like that electoral politics is just one. It's just one small sliver of how we make the world better. And
so it's one small sliver of how you make the world better. But the problem is you're not doing the other part. You're not doing the organizing part. You're not doing the local actions. You're not out there advocating for some of these ballot initiatives that really need a lot of promotion. You're not out there trying to mobilize the people in the streets to push back against the politicians like you said that you would, particularly at that eviction moratorium. So if AOC knows that electoral politics is just a small part of the pie, why isn't she doing the other part of the pie? Because she's a careerist, because she's looking out for her career. She's going along with the flow so that she can move up the ladder in DC. That's why. That's why. Opportunist.
And if we put all of our eggs into that basket, people start acting way too crazy. And like Donald Trump is what you actually get. Donald Trump is what you actually get when you want a politician to embody all of like your hopes and dreams and like caricatures of yourself.
Yes.
And Donald Trump affirms insecure men's idea of masculinity.
Yes.
Let me pause here for a second. I have many criticisms of Donald Trump, particularly when it comes to policy. That being said, when she sits here and she says that Donald Trump is what you get when you want someone that embodies like every bit of you, people could say the same thing about Bernie Sanders, AOC. People pay attention to what's happening here. AOC is basically giving similar criticism to Trump supporters that was given to Bernie Sanders supporters. Remember the Bernie bro narrative? Remember they worship this guy. They idolize Bernie Sanders. He's their hero. He's their leader. That wasn't a bad thing then, remember? AOC supported Bernie Sanders. She endorsed Bernie Sanders in 2020. So now all of a sudden, that's a problem. You are watching AOC slowly but surely become Nancy Pelosi. You say all of the progressive things in the beginning to get into office. And then once you're there, if you want to make a career at it, you start to backpedal on some of the things and just say, well, at least it's not Donald Trump.
They affirm insecure people's idea of wealth.
Internalize misogyny.
Yeah. Insecure white folks' idea of race. Like,
Right.
That's what you get when you want your everything to come, all of your like life and identity affirming things to come from electoral politics. You get demagogues,
Right.
people who want to like symbolize these psychological things. Joe Biden doesn't do that. And I think that's actually a good thing.
Yeah.
Joe Biden doesn't do anything. That's the problem. Joe Biden doesn't do anything. They really are making the case for a guy who has difficulty speaking to you. And they want you to support this guy. This is how sad these two parties have become. It's really bad. Call me crazy, but I happen to think Jill Stein is 10 times better and more alert than Joe Biden. I happen to think that Cornel West is 10 times better and more alert than Joe Biden. but they want you to support the guy who has difficulty speaking and doesn't know where he's at half the time and is actively supporting genocide. This is where we're at now. It's no longer about supporting the best candidate who has the best policies. Because you see, right now, if Bernie Sanders were running, we were in 2020, and when Bernie Sanders was running against Joe Biden, right now, technically, AOC would still tell you to support Joe Biden. It's no longer about the policies anymore. It's just about what helps AOC continue to have the spot that she has.
Right.
Because like, you know, it's more honest, I think, about where we are, whether we like it or not.
He's our grandpa
Mhm.
that saved
Well,
us
exactly.
from our alcoholic stepfather that abused us for 4 years. One just quick follow-up question.
Did you guys hear what she just said? So they just basically said that Joe Biden is our grandpa. My grandfathers didn't support genocide. This is what we're stuck with now. This is what we're seriously stuck with. My grandfather wasn't walking around trying to sniff little girls' hair. You know, just things like that. And they said that Donald Trump is the alcoholic, abusive father. All of a sudden, we're just going to forget all those things about Joe Biden. You know, Tara Reid had actually reached out to AOC when she came forward about Joe Biden. AOC has no response. But that's your grandfather? That's not my grandfather. My grandfather wouldn't have gone around saying, I don't want my kids to grow up in a racial jungle. Your grandfather co-wrote the crime bills? That's what you want as a grandfather? This is how low we've come.
Question: as a voter deep in a red state and a lifelong Democrat, does the Democratic Party, because we got so dicked over by Ruth Bader Ginsburg, does the Democratic Party have a backup plan between now and November should Joe Biden fall prey to some sort of medical emergency that you're aware of? And I think as a voter, it's a very reasonable question to ask considering his advanced age.
I think it's a super reasonable question to ask. You know, I do not know, to be honest. I think what people tend to look at is just line of succession in terms of the job itself. But, you know, it is something that I think is a reasonable question to ask. And there are, you know, you have people that are kind of running but haven't qualified for these seats. I think it's important to know that if something like that does or were to happen, because there is not a primary, I do believe it would go to the convention.
Let me pause. So now you see AOC is repeating mainstream media talking points. There is no primary. When we go over to Eric Jackman about the New Hampshire coverage, first of all, I want to let you know that Dean Phillips was there. I believe Marianne was also there. And I think you might be surprised because the thing is, Joe Biden, remember, he's not on the ballot in New Hampshire because he changed the rules in reference to the early primary states. So what voters in New Hampshire that want to support Joe Biden are going to have to do is basically a write-in campaign. But AOC is sitting here and pretending like nobody else is running against Joe Biden. Then she goes on to say that they haven't met the requirements. The only person that hasn't met some of these requirements is Cenk Uygur. And that's because he wasn't born in the United States. So for some states, he's already been removed the ballot. But she's like, they haven't met these requirements. What requirements haven't they met? They're on the ballot, aren't they? This is just gaslighting the people.
And that is a big gobbledygook situation. So we'd have to honestly see, but I think it's a perfectly valid question to ask. And I think it's also one that, you know, I think this is the biggest disconnect, I'd say, between the Beltway and like everyday people. But it also cuts to this question of, I think a lot of people think who can beat Trump. And that's a largely untested assumption too. There's a lot of like this idea that, only another white guy can beat Trump.
Right.
But you're not supporting the people that aren't white guys that are running against both of them. I mean, you're not supporting Marianne. You're not supporting Jill Stein. You're not supporting Cornel West. What the hell are you talking about? So it's just very telling here. And she didn't answer the question. Do you think that Joe Biden's cognitive decline, his mental acuity, is going to be a problem? She didn't answer the question. Should people be concerned about that? All that word salad that she just gave, but she actually did not answer the question. We'll finish up here.
And there's a lot of kind of assumptions there that obviously don't feel good. But yeah, that's it. It's a valid question to ask, and I do not have an answer for you.
Maybe you could check
Don't have an answer for you, but I'm endorsing it.
around with your coworkers and circle back to us.
Yeah.
Sure, that's going to happen. Okay.
So these two women, I see people asking in the chat, these two women, this is not a political show. It's like more like a entertainment podcast. And you've been seeing this a lot more, like politicians like AOC, they don't really want to face a lot of the progressive supporters, socialist Marxists, people that came out and supported them in 2018 and some in 2020. They don't really want to face us. They don't want to face me. They don't want to face, hell, they don't even go on TYT anymore. And that's a big one. They don't want to face us. So what they do is they go on to these entertainment style podcasts where the people there don't know as much about electoral politics. They don't dive as deep into electoral politics. This is why they'll go into shows like The Breakfast Club, right? Because they know they're not going to get that same type of pushback on those entertainment shows or the hip hop shows that they would on these political shows. Now, I want to show you something. When we talk about Joe Biden and AOC doubling down. Shout out to Case Study QB for this. Gaza death toll is over 25,000. The entire population is highly food insecure and at risk of famine. Hostage families storm Israeli parliament. We're going to show you that. Netanyahu defies Biden over Palestinian state. Listen to this.
The Israel-Hamas war has reached another tragic milestone, with at least 25,000 dead in Gaza, according to the Palestinian Ministry of Health in Gaza. The utter destruction continues, with at least 50 dead today and more than 100 injured in a strike on Khan Yunis, according to the Gaza Health Ministry. The living conditions in Gaza continue to deteriorate, with millions at risk of famine. There are still about 130 hostages likely facing these conditions as well, and their family members are losing patience, protesting outside the home of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and dramatically interrupting a meeting in the Israeli parliament earlier today.
Watch this.
Netanyahu met with families today, telling them there was, quote, no real proposal from Hamas for a deal.
Pause for a second. This shows you again, like I said before, that they never really cared about the hostages. So those are family members, and they're really upset and saying, what are you doing? Now, Hamas has been very clear and said permanent ceasefire and will release the hostages. That's why I say they never really cared about getting those hostages back. It was never really about that. But none of this happens without the arms from the United States government. So the United States government is complicit. And that's under Joe Biden's leadership. And that's who AOC wants you to support. AOC says she can disassociate herself from this issue and support Joe Biden anyway.
According to an Israeli government official, Israel has proposed a 2-month pause in fighting in exchange for all of the remaining hostages, first reported by Axios. But Hamas has said it won't release hostages without a permanent ceasefire, leaving Hamas in power in Gaza. This comes as Netanyahu is facing increasing criticism for defying the Biden administration and openly rejecting the possibility of a two-state solution. While it's a diplomatic slap in the face to Israel's best friend on the world stage, President Biden, it's also not surprising. Here was Netanyahu way back in 1978, claiming that Palestinians did not need a separate state because they were already a part of the Arab nation.
This is why I think that people like Joy and some of the other mainstream media pundits are starting to watch independent media. Because notice how like some of their talking points, like you're like, damn, I thought I heard that on Hardlands Media. Didn't they say that on RBN? Yeah, they're watching. They're watching.
There is no right to establish a second one on my doorstep, which will threaten my existence. There is no right whatsoever.
Since then, he's flip-flopped just a little bit, backing a demilitarized conditional Palestinian state in 2009 under pressure from newly elected President Barack Obama. But in a last-ditch attempt one night before his 2015 election, he made it clear that there would be no state of Palestine if he was elected.
And Joe Biden still supports Netanyahu. Netanyahu is extremely right-wing, further right-wing than Donald Trump is. Netanyahu, who's more dangerous right now? Donald Trump or Netanyahu? Netanyahu. But this is who Joe Biden is continuing to support. So AOC says she's more concerned about a fascist state. But the president that's in power right now, who is a Democrat, is supporting fascism abroad. This is how you can easily debunk these narratives from people. And it's not just Israel and Gaza. This is something else that AOC is overlooking, that the Biden administration is overlooking when it comes to the economy. They keep talking about the fact that Joe Biden created all these jobs. And I told you, but they never said what the jobs were or what the pay was. Listen to this. They're not telling you this part.
As a recent report shows, layoffs surged last year. The leadership development and executive coaching firm called Challenger Gray and Christmas found that companies planned more than 721,000 job cuts in 2023. And that is a 98% increase from the cuts announced in 2022. So
98% increase in layoffs in 2023. And all last year, we heard Joe Biden say that the economy is great because he created all these jobs, leaving out all the companies that have been laying people off. And this is what I tried to tell people. I've been trying to explain to everybody, Joe Biden is lying to you. Every time you turn around, another person is getting laid off. A lot of these companies have been laying people off by the thousands. They're leaving this out. AOC is leaving this out. So it's not just about the genocide. It's about the economy.
What does this mean for job cuts this year? Well, for more, let's bring in Johnny C. Taylor Jr. He is the CEO of the Society for Human Resource Management. Johnny, thanks very much for being with us. So first, just tell us, why did we see such a spike in job cuts last year, and which industries were most impacted?
So totally predictable. Right after COVID, if you recall, we're in the middle of the Great Resignation. The economy was on fire as we came out of COVID 21, 22, and employers overhired. In fact, every time we see a statement from the CEO announcing job cuts, they admit, like we.
Pause here. I want to show you something real quick. Thank you. Katie Lewis said, but David Pakman told me the economy is good. You mean he actually had no idea what the F he was talking about? That's right, Katie. Look at this. Industries, tech, retail companies, healthcare, financial firms. I want to zone in on retail companies, 78,000. You know why that's significant? The average middle-aged woman in the United States has a retail job. Kid you not, whether they're a cashier, sales associate, etc. A lot of these stores are closing. A lot of these stores are closing. You can go to the Cambridge Side Galleria, you go up to the third store, all the stores are gone. The J. Crew, all that stuff gone. More people are buying things online. And also, people just don't have the money. So when you don't have a lot of money, what is one of the first things that you are going to cut? Probably not going to be buying a lot of clothes. So that's important. The retail one, that's the one I really want you to focus on. That's working class job, average middle-aged woman in this country.
overhired. Just read Wayfair's letter the other day, and they literally said, I overhired. So that's partly is we're settling back into what is the norm.
And in what industries did we mostly see this?
Yeah, listen, technology is really taking the hit. Retail is taking a hit. Those are your two biggest areas. We're seeing healthcare firms, financial firms, professional services firms generally, where people are driving the business is where we're taking the biggest hits.
What challenge?
Okay, so we'll go ahead and stop that there. But those are all the things that AOC is not taking into consideration. And I think all those things should be taken into consideration. But according to her, she wants you to just go ahead and support him anyway. Thank you for the super chat, G. Doobie doobie doo. Thank you, Alex. The brick lady lied and got arrested. I heard. I may have to cover that on Thursday. I think I said tomorrow. I'm not live on Wednesdays. I don't know what I was thinking. Probably Thursday. Heartless Media in the chat. We are glad to be back. And we thank Sabby Sabs and everyone who helped. You are welcome. Bryce says, SWV, Tevin Campbell, Boys to Men, Johnny Gill, Frankie Beverly, and Maze. Man, love old school music. I wonder whatever happened to Tevin Campbell. He was so talented. Jake says they are both solo artists now. Oh, you're talking about the guys from Oasis. Okay. Thank you for the super chat. Social emotional learning. Justice Dems is a great title for CIA front group. Thank you, David. AOC being casually bigoted disgusts me the most. Thank you, Sports Droppings. In hip hop, AOC would be known as a studio gangster. Thank you, Alex. Why do they want Biden so bad? That's a good question, Alex. To maintain the status quo. Thank you, Sticks. That Child of Alcoholics line is from Jimmy Dore. Ah, so they are watching independent media. I knew it. I knew it. Thank you, Sebastian. Is this Call Her Daddy version of Pod Save America? I don't know. That's interesting. Interesting. Okay, let's go ahead to our next story here. This is about Elon Musk and Ben Shapiro. I'm not sure if people have seen this. If you didn't, you're going to see it now. So recently, Elon Musk and Ben Shapiro decided to take a trip to Auschwitz concentration camp. When we get into the hypocrisy here, it just, how are you going to go see a concentration camp and you're avoiding the concentration camp in Gaza? Elon Musk is going to Israel. Now he goes to Auschwitz concentration camp. Elon Musk hasn't dare set foot in Gaza. Hasn't dare set foot in Gaza. And that includes Zionist Ben Shapiro as well. How do you align yourself with this clown? Think about it. Here's the video here. I'm just muting the music here. So people are like, oh, it's Elon Musk and Ben Shapiro. Oh my God. So here they are. Oh, wow. I'm learning so much. I'm trying to educate myself here. Now you're going to go to a concentration camp that no longer has, obviously, prisoners in that concentration camp, but you won't step foot in a live action one right now, which is Gaza. That's the hypocrisy part. That's the hypocrisy. And as much as Elon Musk says he was for free speech and he didn't care what the advertisers said in reference to X, I call BS on that. I think Elon Musk does care. I think he's getting a lot of pressure from these corporations, not just from the advertisers. And I think that's why he's doing these things. Here's another clip here I want to show. And this is from RT. It says Elon Musk made a surprise visit to Auschwitz Memorial.
Birkenau was divided into smaller sectors, so I mentioned this.
El male rachamim shochen b'meromim.
It's the hypocrisy of it all. This is actually a significant action here for him to light the candles. And we can see the sign here that says never again, not on my watch, never again is now. But it's like when it comes to genocide happening to Palestinian people, you just either ignore it or You're blind to it, purposefully blind to it. It's the hypocrisy of it all. And like, you know, what happened to Jewish people during the Holocaust, it's a travesty. It's disgusting. And it should never happen again. But it is happening again. It's just happening to a different group of people. And now you have the state of Israel and the West committing genocide against another group of people. That's the hypocrisy. So he can go there and he can light a candle. Let me educate myself on this tour. But won't step foot in Gaza. Won't step foot in the Congo. This is the guy who came from apartheid South Africa. It's not like, I'm gonna keep it real. It's not like Elon Musk is trying his best to congregate with others. Elon Musk is just backing a totally different form of supremacy. And you're going to see what that looks like as well. Totally different form of supremacy. Now, you can feel sorry about oppressed people that have white skin, but you can't feel sorry for oppressed people that have darker skin. Where's that same type of sympathy and empathy, Elon? This is so cringe. And then here's Ben Shapiro. You know, so it's like I said before, Elon aligning himself with Zionist, right-wing Zionist. This is what he's doing. I'm all for free speech. Not if you're on the left, though. Meanwhile, Palestinian accounts this past week were suspended on X. Solomon, who actually came onto the show, his account was suspended. It's back now because there was a lot of outrage, but his account was suspended. And you say we need to hear free speech. We need to hear all voices. What voices do you want to hear, Elon? You don't want to hear from the real oppressed people. You want to hear from people who claim they still being oppressed when they're actually the ones that are in power right now in the Middle East. The Palestinian people have no power. The Palestinian people in Gaza are occupied. Why don't you go to the West Bank, Elon, and watch the Palestinian people dragged out of their homes? That's why this is bullshit. Now there's more. Raven hit the nail on the head. Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, touring Auschwitz while Israel is accused with genocide, emboldens white supremacist conspiracies about Jewish people. This is true. That's why I said what the state of Israel is doing does not help Jewish people. This doesn't bode well for anti-Semitism. And she's referring to this picture here. And this person said, now visit an Indian reservation. He looks like a beaten dog. That came from Ryan. So that was him lighting the candle there. And now there was also an interview with him and Ben Shapiro. Now watch Elon Musk kiss up to Ben Shapiro. Watch this.
Yeah, I grew up around a lot of Jewish people. I went to Hebrew preschool, Rachel Spiro in South Africa. My name is very Jewish.
I will tell you that for the past 10 years, people have assumed in my community that you were Jewish until I informed them otherwise.
Yeah.
Elon is a pretty Jewish name.
He's super Jewish.
Yeah.
And then I went to Israel when I was 13. Visited Masada. I'm certainly checking the boxes on a lot of things. Like I said, most of my friends are Jewish, just worked out that way.
Most of my friends are Jewish. I'm not racist. I have a black friend. See, what's interesting is that if it were the other way around, Elon Musk would say, this is woke. He's on Twitter nonstop saying, don't talk about colonization. Why, Elon? Because people will have to tell the truth about your family in South Africa, in apartheid South Africa. That's why you don't want people to talk about colonization. It was never about free speech. It was about protecting white comfort. That's what Elon Musk does. He's not going to say that out loud. Because if you were to sit here and let's pretend it was the Congo when you're talking about what's happening to people in the Congo, Elon Musk will classify that as woke. Get rid of it. No wokeism. Get rid of it. But it's not woke. It's not woke when it's white people. Pay attention, folks. Pay attention. Bill Ackman, all of them, all these guys are friends. These old billionaire friends. Their little billionaire bro club. Bill Ackman will tell you, if you were saying these statements about another group, if you were saying, yeah, I went to school with people who were indigenous. Many of my friends are indigenous. I've always had a deep appreciation for indigenous people. They would call that woke. But it's not woke when they're talking about people who have white skin. You have to pay attention. He goes on to finish here.
So sometimes I guess maybe I forget. Maybe, am I Jewish? I'm Jewish. Aspirationally Jewish. Yeah, I grew up.
So yeah, that happened. That happened. And Eric, I see you in the background. I'll be coming to you in just about 2 minutes. That happened, but there's more. And this is the kind of thing that Elon Musk is not covering. So you see this guy here, this gentleman, a German abbot told to cover his cross by Israelis. See, watch this. So he can't even be himself.
But it's really big and it's inappropriate for this place, okay? That's a Jewish place. You need to respect the place. Can you please put it inside?
Okay, this is very harsh. It's very harsh. No, you're not respecting.
Can you please stop taking pictures?
You're not respecting. You're hindering me from my human right to. This is not provocation. I'm an abbot. This is my dress. This is how I'm dressed.
I told you to do something with your dress code. I told you to do something with your cross.
The cross is part of my dress code. I'm a Roman Catholic abbot. This is how I dress. So you want from me that I'm not dressed as my faith tells me how I should dress.
This is what I was talking about. But see, Elon and Ben Shapiro, they're not going to show you that. That's why I said it's a lot of hypocrisy. Very interesting. If you have not had a chance to do so, go ahead and smash that like button. If you're new, don't forget to sub and share. And I see Eric is in the background. So we're going to go ahead and move to the New Hampshire primary race. Eric, when you're ready, just give me a thumbs up and I'll go ahead and bring you in. All right. What's going on?
Hey, Sabby, how are you?
I'm good. Good. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on. It's good to see you and chat with you. It's been a while. I think the last time I saw you was February of last year, the Rage Against the War Machine rally in DC.
Yep.
Wow. Yeah.
So we want to hear about what's happening in New Hampshire. So I want to show everyone. I saw you had a picture here with Dean Phillips. So you got a chance to talk to him. And you also got a picture here with Vivek Ramaswamy. So I want to hear about what were these conversations like? Number one, how do things look for Dean Phillips? I saw a story that said in New Hampshire, he might do surprisingly well.
Yeah. So that was taken at Dean's campaign headquarters launch in Manchester, New Hampshire, where most campaigns will have their headquarters. And he had a good crowd, really enthusiastic crowd. People were fired up. I did notice that a couple of his top guys were former Yang guys, Conrad Taylor and what's the other guy's name? Zach Grumman. Is that his name?
Oh, yeah.
So I had a feeling Yang was going to be showing up to New Hampshire for Phillips. And of course he did the last few days. So that wasn't a surprise. So there's like a little bit of a Yang gang vibe. And then but no, I mean, I found Dean to be like a very friendly and affable kind of guy. I mean, if you didn't tell people or you didn't know he's one of the richest guys in Congress, you wouldn't know that. He doesn't put on this wealthy, multi-millionaire child of a liquor dynasty from Minnesota. A lot of people don't realize that. That's what he comes from. And his grandmother is the Dear Abby. She's the original Dear Abby in the Dear Abby letters.
What?
Like that advice column. Well, it's interesting. It's an adopted family. So Dean Phillips, his biological father, died in 1969 when Dean was only 6 months old over in Vietnam. He was like a week after the moon landing. Phillips' biological father was killed over there in action. So his mother was a single mother for a while, and then she married into the Phillips family, which is part of a liquor, alcohol dynasty. And you can thank that group for Belvedere vodka. They created Belvedere vodka, which is pretty good vodka. Yeah, so people don't know this about him. I obviously did a lot of homework because Dean, that guy came here basically since October. That guy has lived here in New Hampshire. He's been crisscrossing the state. He's been going everywhere. His signs are everywhere. He had kind of a goofy, funny, folksy Midwestern charm like van that was decked out with all of his stuff. And they drove that around the state. And, it was just like, I'm not Joe Biden. Even though I have a voting record that I vote with Biden 95% of the time, I'm not Joe Biden. I'm not a corpse. I'm a young guy. I'm energetic. I can relate to you. And then he definitely made a leftward tilt to appeal to younger college kids who are back now from holiday break, because they can vote here in New Hampshire. So I saw him talking about Medicare for all. I saw him talking about student loan forgiveness. And then he's a Jewish member of Congress, so he definitely pulled on that when talking about Israel and Palestine, saying he wants to see an end to the conflict there. He didn't really offer much by way of policy concretes, but just overall, it was an emotional thing. It was like, look, Biden ditched the state. He's not even on the ballot. The sitting president has to do a write-in campaign here, which is absolutely pathetic. Biden hasn't been to the state in probably over 2 years. And I'm here. I'm a sitting member of Congress. I'm going to actually come here. I'm going to campaign. I'm going to meet with the people. I'm going to run a real campaign. And he has. He's run a real campaign. He was all over. And so that was at his headquarters where I met him. And then I ran into him today randomly at the polls in Windham, New Hampshire, where I was getting signatures for Bobby Kennedy to be on the ballot as an independent. But Phillips just happened to be stopping by there to say hi to supporters and check the place out. So he recognized me. That's how ridiculous it is here in New Hampshire. He pointed at me and he recognized me because when I saw him again, I was wearing an ABBA shirt and he's like, "Oh yeah, you had the ABBA shirt on, and I appreciate what you're doing. And I've talked to Bobby Kennedy and we don't agree on everything, but I think it's important to have him on the ballot." So yeah, Dean has run a great campaign, and I found him to be a nice guy. But I think you're right. And I said this to him today. I said, a lot of my friends and even some boomer age people had no idea who the hell you were until you came here and dropped in and they made a campaign of this, and they're going to vote for him. They told me they're planning on voting for him. So I do think
he does have a base.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, there's people turning up to his events here. Now, is that going to translate to a surprise victory over Biden? I don't really know. It's kind of hard to gauge because then you have Marianne Williamson, and she's been running a real campaign up here for many months, multiple visits to the state, has a real staff. She has state reps who endorsed her campaign. One of them is a personal friend of mine, a great state rep from Peterborough here, where I'm from. Jonah Wheeler was one of her top guys in the state. And, she's I got to give Marianne a lot of credit. She's a dogged campaigner. She did my podcast a couple days ago, and, she's here listening to the voters, and she shares the animus towards the DNC and the rigging and the screwing, and basically just F you voters. We don't give a shit. Sitting president and our DNC racket, which is still a lot of Obama people. We don't give a damn about you. South Carolina is going to go first. And, here in New Hampshire, if you get 15% or higher, you get awarded delegates that will be seated at the national convention that are supposed to be in Chicago this summer. But they've said that's not going to happen. So even if Phillips or Williamson gets to 15% and then gets beyond that, they're not going to have any delegates seated at the national convention.
That's interesting. I'm curious in reference to Joe Biden. Have you ran into anyone that is actively supporting Joe Biden in New Hampshire?
The people that support him are just the party stiffs. A lot of boomers, a lot of Ukraine flag people. Like if Ukraine flag was a human being, it's the write-in Biden people. This is like old guard New Hampshire Democratic Party. Like her name's Kathy Sullivan. She used to be chair of the Democratic Party up here. She was a big Clinton butt licker. You know, just standard vote blue no matter who kind of people. And at the polls, I mean, honestly sad. I mean, it's MAGA country up here. So like their people just drown out the write-in Biden people. So it's just feeble old boomer establishment. You know, Annie Custers and Chris Pappas are our members of Congress up here. Jean Shaheen. They're all on board. They're all part of it. They know it's elderly abuse. I mean, at this point, I feel bad for Biden. He's a corpse. It's elderly abuse. I can't believe they're doing this to him and having him run again. It's embarrassing for our country. It's embarrassing all around. But to answer your question, like real everyday New Hampshire people, Granite State people who I hang out with, which could go from anywhere from pretty liberal Bernie Sanders type people all the way over to free staters and libertarians. I don't really have anyone who's like, yeah, Eric, Biden. I'm all about Biden. I'm psyched about this. I'm psyched about this write-in snow job. And yeah, I know they screwed us over and they rewarded South Carolina because that's what rescued Brandon's campaign in 2020. He came in 5th up here in New Hampshire. It was abysmal. Mm-hmm. It was awful. He did an event right here on my street in downtown Peterborough at the town hall, and he couldn't even get 80 people to show up. I could have walked down and saw Biden, and I was like, I'm not even interested in going. So it's just.
Yeah, like it's crazy. Another thing was interesting. So Vivek was there, and I think a lot of people may be wondering because Vivek did obviously suspend his campaign. Was he there basically to help advocate for Trump?
Yeah, he was. Vivek was there rallying the MAGA faithful. So he showed up so probably like a half hour after Gene Phillips came in, said hi, and then left. I heard that Vivek will be here in 5 minutes. So he rolled up with an entourage, a couple of SUVs. You can see one of them in the back there. And he just came, and right when everyone saw him, all the Trump people and the MAGA faithful saw him, they started chanting USA, USA, and Vivek just, he ate it up, and he's really settling into the role as high-profile surrogate, and he's auditioning for vice president or a cabinet spot with Trump. Mm-hmm. I mean, certainly now going forward, even if he's not awarded something in the cabinet or something official, he's going to be in that MAGA media ecosystem as a rock star now. He solidified his footing there. But it's interesting. One of the guys who was Vivek's top advisor and guy here in the state is a state rep named Fred Doucette, who was Trump's co-chair of his campaign in 16 and 20 here. And he bailed on Trump for this primary and went with Vivek. So that was interesting. So I could see how it'd be pretty easy and seamless now that he's out of the race and he's a surrogate for Trump and making the case for MAGA, that he was just kind of brought right into the fold because Trump was like, you know why I like Ramaswamy? Because Ramaswamy likes me. Okay, that's why I like him. I didn't like him when he was running against me, Sabby, but now that he's not running, I like him. It's a lot easier to like him. Okay,
that's a really good impersonation.
Yeah, well, I do it professionally to plug my services. JackmanTrump.com if you want to hire a Trump impersonator. I will.
Oh my God!
I will show up, Sabby, to weddings, funerals, bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs, quinces, but they got to be legal quinces. They got to be done legally. Okay, it's got to be legal. I'm not going to go to AOC's quince. I'll say, Alex, go get me my Diet Coke, okay? Because she's the bartender from Brooklyn. She is, okay? She is.
Oh my God. Well, I want to show you this clip here from Case Study QB. This was about Dean Phillips and Marianne, where they were saying that they believed that Marianne could actually beat him. I want you to hear this.
Okay, you spent some time with Dean Phillips, who is on the ballot here this week. What does he articulate as his strategy, and how does he define success?
Well, he said to me that if he got in the 20% range, that would be tremendous, was his word. You look at the fact that he is the only sort of elected Democrat who's running. Marianne Williamson is also here in the state campaigning. I think he needs to finish ahead of her to be sure. And a lot of people here I've been talking to say she might actually beat him. That would be a big setback. But he said he's in this race until the convention. He plans to go to Chicago because he wants to argue, look, the data points will only continue to favor me, that Joe Biden can't win. I was talking, though, to some other local Democrats, and they say too much of his message, and I saw it at a couple events, is about process. It's about what the DNC did. It's not about what his vision is for the country. And so they're criticizing him, saying, listen, maybe he would have more of a chance if he was running about issues and not just about a policy debate, process debate.
They want a contrast. There are some things Democrats may be upset about. Okay, you spent some time with Dean Phillips, who is...
Okay. What do you think about that, Eric? What they're saying here, that they said Marianne could actually beat Dean Phillips in New Hampshire, and also this thing that he wants to go to Chicago, but there isn't going to be a real convention.
Yeah, it's going to be like a glorified nursing home with Brandon just eating ice cream, staring at the camera with Jill saying, "You like ice cream? You like ice cream, huh? Who are you? Oh, I'm not wearing pants. Come on, man. Where's Hunter?" Yeah, well, look, Phillips has the war chest. The guy can keep going. He's got, I've read, I think he's worth personally between $70 and $80 million. And he's got dude's got money. He's got that alcohol family money. And I think, from that, he launched some businesses that he's done well with. So certainly he has the resources to do it. But you're right. What would he be showing up to in Chicago? What would that look like? I mean, hell, I remember in 2012, I worked for Ron Paul up here. We came in second place, and he had all these delegates and showed up to that convention down in Florida, where Clint Eastwood was yelling at the empty chair like an old senile guy. And Ron Paul got treated like absolute dirt at that convention, like he didn't even exist. So even if Phillips is to show up from other states where he gets some delegates or has some wind in his sails, we know how the DNC is going to act. They're going to give him the cold shoulder. They're not going to give him the time of day. They're going to ignore him. This is an anointment. This is about Biden and Kamala Harris and 4 more years of Build Back Better and stability and beating Putin and, just all the bullshit that they talk about. So that they're arguing that Marianne Williamson could possibly do better than Dean Phillips here in New Hampshire. Is that what they were saying?
That's what they're saying. Have you met a lot of Marianne supporters there?
Yeah, I know a few. Her events, I have to say they're attended, but just anecdotally, crowd size, I saw bigger crowds at Dean Phillips events. Wow. Yeah. So it was interesting because I didn't know what to expect when I went to his opening. I'm like, who's going to go to this? Because we did, I've been with Bobby since June, and when we were still a Democrat, we had some of that energy. We had people showing up to our events who were dissatisfied Democrats who were like, yeah, we're going to use this opportunity to stick it to Biden, and we could have an upset victory here in the primary. Someone coming here and campaigning hard in New Hampshire and running. So Phillips certainly made that case and did that and really put some resources into the state and had a great STEM. His staff were all great. They're really professional. Their events were really well run and attended, and they did Q&A and there was access to them. No one big-leagued anybody. Like Dean was very accessible and very available for New Hampshire voters, and so was Marianne. But like I said, it's hard to predict who could win or who's going to do better. Like I would hate to see the write-in thing get more votes. I think that would be awful. And that would just suck. That would just, because all Biden had, he had Ro Khanna drop in a few times. He had Bernie drop in and speak at St. Anselm at the Institute of Politics, and then some other kind of lower level surrogates. But beyond that, there was no campaign. There was nothing. The Biden offered nothing to the people of New Hampshire by way of earning support and earning a vote for a write-in campaign. So I'd like to see Dean. I'd like to see Dean or Marianne pull something off here today and do better than expected. But if I had to bet money on it, I would say Phillips is poised to do the best out of the lot.
And here's a video of you with Dean Phillips here.
Yep. Yeah, that's awesome. Hey, I got a podcast here. I just want a quick minute to ask you 3 quick questions. Oh, sure, yeah. Okay. My buddy's going to film. Hey. We rolling? Mm-hmm. All right, we're here with Congressman Dean Phillips. It's Eric Jackman from Jackman Radio. Congressman, thanks for being here in Peterborough.
Good to be in Peterborough with Eric.
So, quick lightning round. Yeah. Why should New Hampshire voters not write in Joe Biden and vote for you?
Well, only if New Hampshire voters want change. You know, if you're part of the exhausted majority and you're sick and tired of the both parties and the past, and two men, frankly, who are going to be in their 80s, you want it for a new generation, and you want to be hopeful and optimistic again, vote for Dean. Change is coming.
Absolutely. Who's going to win the Stanley Cup this year?
Not the Minnesota Wild. I don't even think the Bruins are either.
Ooh, he won't even pander to us Bruins fans. Dean, if you get the nomination, if it's you against Trump and Biden, what do you, or not you against Trump, what do you want Trump to come up with a nickname for you?
Oh, Dynamic Dean.
You heard it here first. Dynamic Dean right here. Dynamic Dean from Minnesota.
Yeah.
And,
by the way, I cannot wait. Cannot wait to be on the debate stage with him.
Dynamic Dean, you heard it from
the other question is, what nickname should I come up with for him? Not you, Eric, but Trump.
You got one right now, or you want to think about that?
No, I'm going to have to think about it.
Well, I'm going to tweet at you. I want to get that from you. And lastly, today's RFK Jr.'s 70th birthday.
Yes.
You want to say happy birthday to Bobby?
Yes, happy birthday, Bobby. I respect you as a competitor, respect your family and your legacy, and I think we should all be working together to make sure that Trump doesn't return to the White House.
Congressman, thank you.
Wow. So I guess I just not, I'm absolutely floored. I did not realize that this guy was actually gaining as much momentum as he is. Like I honestly, when he announced he was running, I was like, who? And I was like, why is this guy jumping in the race? So I'm actually surprised, but it does sound like he does have somewhat of a base there, at least in New Hampshire.
Yeah, I mean, I saw people from all across age ranges and political ideologies come out to hear him because we were very slighted by Brandon and company and the DNC. And New Hampshire, us New Hampshire people, we got a little bit of arrogance. I'll be honest about it. We got that New Hampshire primary chip on our shoulder. Like you better come here and you better woo us. You better kiss our ass. You better come to our stores. You better bring your campaigns and spend money here in our state. Because this is how things have always been. We've done it for 100 years. And as Trump says, Iowa, they pick corn and New Hampshire picks president, Sabby. They do, okay? That's the truth. Everybody knows it. Putin knows it. Xi knows it. Rocket Man knows it. It's so true, okay? But yeah, it was interesting. So I said to Dean today, I said, man, you might do better than expected. I think coming out of here, you could be a story. This could be a story. You could have some wind in your sails. And it's something that the media will have to start covering if it snowballs or progresses beyond just like an asterisk performance here in our state. So polls closed. Most polls closed at 7 and some at 8 here in New Hampshire. So probably in the next, it's 8:20 now. So yeah, probably the next half hour, 40 minutes, hour, we're going to start seeing some results trickle in.
What do you think about Ro Khanna was questioned recently about having done something for working class people? I want you to hear what he says here, what Bernie Sanders basically said could be a danger for Joe Biden.
So you were here on President Biden's campaign team behalf. They're doing a write-in campaign. We're going to come spend some time with you later this afternoon. Sounds like it's well organized.
There is so much enthusiasm here for the president. Anyone who says that the president doesn't have enthusiasm needs to come to New Hampshire. Progressives, moderates, lines outside houses.
Well, we're going to come.
I would take it that's probably false.
That is the biggest heaping pile, as Jesse Ventura would say, Sabby, that's the biggest pile of cow dung I've ever seen in my life. That is unequivocally the largest steaming, stinking pile of shit I've ever seen. I don't buy a word of that from Roe.
Oh my God, they're really trying it.
Wow, no, that is...
Spend some time with you and bring it back over the next couple of days to our shows. But your old friend, Senator Bernie Sanders, would definitely like him to be making that argument stronger. Do you agree with that? And what do you think he means by that? What would Senator Sanders like to see that he's not seeing?
I think what Senator Sanders would say is look at FDR in 1936. He got a lot done, but he said that people still were struggling. And Senator Sanders would say we've got to become a working class party. Let's talk about a second term where President Biden will really fight to make sure we get the living wage, where he's going to fight to make sure we get child care, $10 a day, fight for more affordable housing. And he should be honest with folks. Look, he's trying to overturn 40 years of neoliberalism that gutted the middle class. He's not going to do that in 2 or 4 years, probably won't even do it in 8 years, but he's trying to reverse this absolute free market ideology and center the working class. And I think President Biden is going to make a great economic argument.
So in the limit.
Yeah. So the thing that's really funny about that is that's Ro Khanna basically saying out loud that the Democratic Party is not a working class party.
Well, also reversing 40 years of neoliberal policies. Yeah, that Joe Biden created, that he was a part of in the Senate when he was still a gangster and had his facilities.
Yes, that's
Right?
incredibly true. I mean, it I want to pull up this article here. Just at least the headline. Let me see, I'm gonna find it. It was about independence. I want you to see this. And Eric T, I should say, because there's a lot of Erics that come on the show.
Eric, it's a great. We got Eric Trump, Sabby. It's a great name. My son Eric. He's a very, very smart guy. He's a smart guy. I call Trump's sons Uday and Kusei.
There's just so many Erics. Eric, producer Eric, can you pull up the Nikki Haley part? Because I want to move on to Nikki Haley as well. Yeah. But this is what I saw here in reference to independent voter. It says New Hampshire primary sees notable turnout of unaffiliated voters, moderates, preliminary exit polls. Are there a lot of independents coming out to the primary?
So I pulled these numbers before I came on here, and at last check in New Hampshire, here's how our registration breaks down: 303,000 Democrats, 298,000 Republicans, unaffiliated 399,000. So that's the largest block that I'm unaffiliated of voters here in New Hampshire. Now, coming out, the argument was being made that a lot of them are going to come out for Haley. And even a lot of Democrats were going to come out, to damage Trump. They wanted to vote for Haley. And I did hear some people say this, around that they were going to do that. And the mystique of the independent and the undeclared, you always hear about it every 4 years, and it's going to have an impact. It's going to be big. And it usually kind of ends up being a little bit of a dud. It doesn't end up having a huge impact on the results of what happens.
Okay, so it did come through that Nikki Haley. So this was announced earlier today. Nikki Haley clinches the first win in New Hampshire at Dixville Notch. I'm going to play this really quick.
Make sure I get this right for you, Trace. They're going to put it on this whiteboard, as you see. And stand by, Trace. Here we go. Hey, yep. Attention building here, Trace, as the number comes in, and I believe a 6 is being drawn. Yep, Trace, it is official. Wow. All 6 of the votes that were cast being for Nikki Haley. I see for Donald Trump they've put a 0, indication that the former president got none of the votes up here in Dixville Notch, and I guess that makes it about as official as it could possibly get. Wow. As I asked, these folks are now taking pictures, but you're seeing it live. The first results, Trace, of the 2024 New Hampshire presidential primary. Former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley right now able to claim a victory in this very small part of New Hampshire. Make sure I get this right.
So let me ask you a question, Eric. I'm not familiar with Dixville. Where is that located in New Hampshire? And are you surprised that Nikki Haley won that particular area?
No, I'm not surprised. I mean, it's a kind of a fun little tradition part of our primary. They're like the very first. They open up their polling at, I think, some ungodly hour at like 5, it might even be 4 or 5 in the morning, and it's just it's a small. It might not even be an actual town, like an incorporated little hamlet or village, where they go out and they vote. It's like a small little room. I've never been up there personally, but friends of mine have gone up to cover it when I was in college, and then they vote, and then they have the cameras there, and they all. It's like a cheesy Hallmark movie. It's basically what Dixville Notch is. It's just like a cheese. Just like I just picture like bottles of maple syrup and. Old people like, the Clarks, they're voting for Haley this time, and we like that Indian guy. We like that Indian fella, or when it was like Ben Carson or Herman Cain, we like the black guy.
Yeah. Yep. Oh my God. Well, I want to show you something. Some switches were happening earlier this morning as well, too. Like some of the people that said they had planned on voting for Nikki Haley apparently when they arrived, they decided to change their mind. And Eric T, when you get a chance, can you just Google to check the latest poll results to see what's been released? But this was pretty interesting. People changing their mind last minute.
Want to shut off the border. Yeah, I changed my vote this morning. I went, instead of voting for Haley, I voted for Donald Trump this morning.
You changed your vote this morning?
Yeah,
why?
Sure did. I think the primary's over. I think that, Mr. Trump's going to be our next candidate. Want to shut off.
So let me ask you a question, Eric. The switcheroo, people who were set on voting for Nikki Haley, but like this gentleman, when they got there, they decided to vote for Donald Trump. How much of that do you think was happening? And then also, I think some people want to know this question. Where did the former Ron DeSantis supporters go, do you think?
That's awesome. That's interesting because a lot of the people, the Haley people, were like so dug in to vote for. I went to an event that she was at. I sent you a tweet in our chat if you want to show that after, where they're like, we're done with Trump. He's immature. It's chaos that follows him. We can do better than him. Haley's the adult in the room, And I said it in my Trump voice. I said, Haley and her millions of dollars from Boeing. We call her little baby Boeing. Okay. She was able to buy the nice McMansion down there with the money from Boeing. Okay. It's very sad. It's very disgusting. She's total deep state, even though I put her as UN secretary. But that's interesting. I didn't hear about a lot of people that were going to bail on Haley to go for Trump. But I certainly did hear among the MAGA faithful and former Vivek people and former Meatball Ron people that this thing is over. Iowa was a mandate, and New Hampshire is just going to further solidify that mandate that Donald Trump's the guy. He's going to be the nominee. No one's going to beat him. Haley could have some kind of showing here where she does 30 or 40%, but that doesn't matter. She's losing badly in her home state where she was governor of South Carolina to the Megalodon Trump.
Well, she was my former governor when I lived in South Carolina. I remember when she ran for governor, and it was a whole big thing. A lot of stuff came out about her. I was surprised she won. But this is your tweet you have here. You said, what message do you have for the survivors of the USS Liberty? And if you became president, what would you do for them? Nikki responded, which one was that? And you said the ship Israel attacked in 1967. Nikki says, we have to always take care of our veterans and put their interests first. What was your impression of her, Eric? Do you feel that she came across as authentic to you?
She was deer in headlights. She had no idea what the hell I was talking about with the Liberty, because my opening was, I'm like, okay, what am I going to ask her? Obviously I don't want to get kicked out of this thing. There were some Never Nikki bros who I think were like Rand Paul acolytes who showed up to one of her events, but they had it advertised on their shirt that they were #Never Nikki. So you're not even going to get into the event if you do that. You won't even get to ask your question.
Right.
This is my brother and I have been. This is our 7th New Hampshire primary, so we know how this game is. This game is played. That's me right there. That I'm giving her the business about the U.S. Liberty there in that picture.
Yeah, because I think some people may not realize that. Like, you can't show up to these events with like a candidate T-shirt on or anything like that.
You can, but if you're there to protest or if you're there to ask a real question like I did about the Liberty, I guarantee you no one in this whole campaign cycle has asked her about the U.S. Liberty. So to me, she's polished. She's very well spoken. She's got her stump memorized. She's got that thing tight. And she can really, really put on the like empathy, like I care. I'm invested in this. So she brought up veterans. We're going to take care of our veterans and honor them and respect them. And it's like, neocon Haley here. You never saw a war that you didn't love and want to profit from and send other people's kids to die for. So I said, okay, she's doing that. That's an opening for me during the photo line. I'm going to ask her about the U.S. Liberty. Because the reason the Liberty, I've known about the Liberty for years, but the reason it was on my radar recently is my state rep, Jonah Wheeler, who was with Marianne Williamson. He met with some of the survivors of the U.S. Liberty here in New Hampshire recently. One of our members of the House brought some of them to New Hampshire. I don't know exactly what it was for, but he sent me a picture of it. I'm like, man, that's awesome. It's great to see that their story is still getting out there. And some people give a shit about what happened, in 1967. But I asked Haley about it, and she had no idea what I was talking about, like deer in headlights. And she's like, well, we just got to take care of all our veterans. They're getting attacked by terrorists all over the world all the time. I'm like, yeah, but like, what specifically would you do? Would you issue an apology? would you own up to what happened? Would you support, because you said you support veterans, but it's only those veterans. It's not those veterans. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that was interesting. But yeah, the word ghoul is thrown out there to describe Nikki Haley. I think that's a pretty apt. She's like Dick Cheney and Ralph Lauren. And like you said, when she was up and coming there in South Carolina, some pretty salacious stories came out there that resurfaced about her being in hotel rooms, Sabby, with people who were not her husband because Mr. Haley was 8,000 miles away in Afghanistan for the empire. Well, she was back in South Carolina doing a binga banga boonga in hotel rooms in the back of Escalade. Very sad. I never cheated on any of my wives, Sabby, by the way, okay? I am the most rich and faithful person ever. Okay, I am. But yeah, she's just a polished politician, man, and she in my view, she's an empty suit.
Well, we have live results coming in now. I think Eric has this poster right now. We'll bring in New Hampshire primary results. 17 New Hampshire delegates won by multiple candidates. So far, it says, I'm sure we still have quite a bit to go, but so far it shows that Donald Trump is winning by 52.8%. He's gained 11 delegates. Nikki Haley has, it just went down, or did it go up? Nikki Haley has 46.3%. She's gained 6 delegates, and this is 24% reporting. Who wins New Hampshire, Eric, based on what you've seen?
Oh, well, the world king, the emir, the sultan, Donald Trump, will be winning a resounding victory tonight on the Republican side. I think when I texted you earlier, my prediction was Trump 55 points, Haley 40, and then other 5%. So I think along those lines, it looks like that's kind of what's coming in. What was Haley at? 36? I don't know if you're able to go back to that. 46,
but the thing is, it says 46.3. It says 24% reporting. However, Boston, this is Boston. I think this is, Boston.com actually just posted Donald Trump and President Joe Biden have won the New Hampshire primaries.
Wow, the write-in campaign won. Yeah.
In.
I know. I mean, Iowa was even worse. They called that thing in 18 minutes. The caucus. Remember how quick they called it for Trump?
Yeah, but Eric says AP called it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, my brother just texted me too and said Biden won with his write-in campaign, and the God Emperor Donald Trump won for the Republicans, which is no shock.
Well, they're showing the Republican. Let me see if we can find the Democrat, or maybe not showing it. I can go to this one. I was trying to see what the other candidates actually.
Yeah, the number. Yeah, I mean, I usually wait till the next morning or the next couple of days, and then I'm a nerd. I go through all the counties, because I know people in all the counties and all the towns, and I like to see how they did. But man, that's a bummer if Biden won that thing by a silly write-in. That's pathetic. That's pathetic.
This is crazy. This is wild and crazy. They've already called it for Donald Trump. CNN says 19% reported, 54.2%. Nikki Haley 44.3%. Is Haley done after New Hampshire?
That's a great question. And like I said, because South Carolina is next, and she's down by a lot to Trump in South Carolina. So how bad would you look if you lost the first 2 contests and Trump won them pretty handily, and then you're going to lose in your home state? What case do you have now to make to the GOP primary electorate that I need to stay in this thing? And even though I lost terribly in the first 2, and now in my home, I can't even win my home state. I think there's going to, depending on what the actual numbers end up being tonight, I think there will be some soul searching, and we could see her get. A lot of people were surprised that Meatball Ron dipped out when he did. I wasn't. I had a feeling after I looked on his website and saw they're starting to cancel events, because some of his guys were calling me or texting me looking for places here in Peterborough, which is not exactly like a firebrand right-wing enclave that Meatball would be welcome to. They were looking to do an event here. Mm-hmm. I was texting with a couple places, and they didn't want anything to do with it. So I saw the writing on the wall with that, but a lot of people were surprised that he ducked out and then bent the knee. you know, he was a meatball that ran away from home. He ran away from the MAGA home, and then now he's coming back with his meatball head held low with his high heels, and begging for forgiveness of his king to bring him back into the MAGA kingdom. You know.
Here are more results here, guys. So this is the New York Times, says Donald Trump 53%, Nikki Haley 46.1%. People still voted for Ron DeSantis, 464 votes, 0.6%. Who is voting for Chris Christie and Mike Pence?
Freaking Pence. Oh my God. He was, Pence was just sad. I went to one of his early events last year in a town called Keene. They got a couple hundred people. You been to Keene?
Yeah, I saw Stomp in Keene.
Hey, oh, that's right. I remember seeing you. You posted something at the Colonial Theater.
Yep.
That's right. Yeah, Pence was just like, oh my God, that guy's just a jar of mayonnaise. He looks like he's wearing a skin mask. He was, God, he was a dead empty suit. And I just cannot understand it for the life of me why he was running. Okay, what's Phillips at? 20%.
This is the Democrat primary, guys, for New Hampshire. 33% of the votes in. It says Joe Biden 392 votes, but then it says unprocessed write-ins 23,719. Dean Phillips 6,757 votes. And then are they showing all of them?
Oh, here we go.
Okay, Marianne got 1,487. I don't even know these other people except for Vernon Supreme.
How many is what's the percentage of reporting for the Democrats?
This is 33%.
Oh, geez. Okay. Wow. Well,
really, I'm supposed to believe all these people wrote in Joe Biden?
I mean, they're like I said, they're the boomers. There's still a lot of boomers up here. They own all the houses, they own everything, and they're cringe, and they watch CNN, and they watch that angry little boy Rachel Maddow on MSNBC, and then that psychopath Joe Scarborough with Mika. And I think, Sabby, some people should talk to Joe Scarborough about the dead intern in his office. They should ask him about it. They really should. They really should.
Oh, man, this is a mess. So I guess the question will be going from here. Does it even make sense for Marianne to continue on? And also with Dean, I don't know if it will make sense for him to continue on either, but it's just, this is very interesting, but they're already calling it for Joe Biden.
It's incredibly disheartening, you know, and obviously I'm going to look tomorrow what the final numbers are when they're more firm. But I was hoping someone was going to crack 30% at least. But you know, if they can get above, and it looks like Dean has there with 20%, you get beyond the 15. Of course, you get the delegates, but like we said, the DNC with their chicanery will not be seating any of those delegates. So if anything, Phillips can take that and go on whatever media will have him and just point out, look how awful this is. This is absolutely terrible. This is not indicative of a thriving republic and representative democracy by any stretch. So it's.
Do you think? Would you say that new? Oh, let me click on delegate tracker really quick. Okay, yeah. Trump has 31 delegates. Nikki has 14. Ron DeSantis 9. Of course, Vivek 3, but they all dropped out. I guess this is just going to be very telling. I mean, does this already make the case that it's just going to be Joe Biden and Donald Trump all over again? I would have thought in New Hampshire that other candidates would have had a stronger chance just because Joe Biden was not even on the ballot. But
I know it's insane. It's insane. Even someone could come in here and spend all this time that Marianne and Dean Phillips did and still finish that way and have a write-in campaign come out on top is it's horrifying. It's a slap in the face to our process, to actually these people having to come down with us commoners and roll around in the mud with us and hear our concerns, because it's just moving more and more towards tarmac politics where you're rolling in the jet, you wave, you do a mega rally, then you leave, you go to the next city. So that's the argument I make for keeping New Hampshire first and keeping our primary, something that is important and has the prestige and the influence that it has had historically, because we're crazy up here with our politics. We're very engaged. We're always paying attention. And I go and see everybody. I mean, since the 04 primary, I probably met like over 80% of the people running for president on Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, like even like a goofy vanity candidate like Vermin Supreme or something like that. You go and see them. It's part of the culture. You go get a picture with them. You do a little video. And then you get to a point like I did with Dean Phillips, where they're seeing you at other things and they remember your first name. So it's cool. If you're into politics, it's fun. But this certainly has really put a damper on the whole thing. And I have to give the Republicans credit. I mean, they at least participated in it, and they were very, very supportive and would not budge an inch on New Hampshire not staying first. Whereas like Ray Buckley, the leader of the New Hampshire Democrats, and them, yeah, they hemmed and hawed a little bit, but they ultimately didn't do anything. They're like, Joe Biden will be our nominee.
Cubba Joy said, what happened to Jill and Cornell and RFK? So they're not present in the primary. They won't appear until the general election. So it just is what it is. One more question for you in reference to that, Eric. What is the deal with, maybe you can tell us, because the rest of us just don't really know. What is the deal with RFK Jr. and the Israel?
Yeah, it's a tough one. And look, I'm sticking with Bobby. And believe me, I'm sad about it. I've said this to Bobby. I don't agree with his position on Israel and Palestine. I've hung out with Roger Waters. I've been to all kinds of great events that are like BDS and solidarity with Palestine. You showed a Ryan Dawson tweet earlier. Ryan is a friend of mine. I do a podcast. I haven't done it in a while, but I have a podcast with him and Reed Coverdale called The Four Horsemen, where we get together. And Ryan's over in Korea now, and we would do a live stream, and we call it The Four Horsemen because our guest would be like the fourth horseman of the apocalypse. And we did some pretty wild episodes. So certainly when all that happened, it really started with Roger Waters, like early in the campaign. Bobby had like a great tweet about Roger Waters supporting him, getting his back. And I was like, yeah, this is awesome. Seeing these two guys come together like on a tweet, and Bobby's backing him, and then he retracted it, and it became a mess, and then it's just evolved into where we are now. I can't read his mind, so I'm not going to pretend to have the answer or the wisdom on this. I see everybody's tweets, and they come at me, and they DM me, and they text me, and they ask me about this, and I have raised these concerns with him. Charles Eisenstein, who's one of Bobby's are you familiar with him?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, Charles Eisenstein, like his top policy advisor, who's helped him write some great speeches and advised him on great speeches on foreign policy that Bobby's given, including the peace speech. That was an event that I helped plan back in June at St. Anselm College, where in commemoration of JFK's speech at American University in June of '63, where he talked about détente and scaling back the war machine and nukes and looking at the Russians as human beings. Charles is a bright dude. He's a sharp guy. He's a Jewish guy. He disagrees with a lot of what Bobby has said about Israel, and he has publicly published some brilliant Substack writings about it. So I have all those concerns, and I know everyone has them. And they've been brought up to him, and it's just an issue where we don't have agreement. And the way that I'm going to continue going and supporting Bobby is that he is so damn good on everything else, in my opinion. He's great. He was great on the COVID issue. He's great on Russia, Ukraine. He's great on civil liberties, medical freedom, transparency in government, bringing to light what happened to his father and his uncle, like all that stuff. We're seeing an unprecedented. Someone with a platform of his stature and his size actually talking truthfully about these issues. It's unbelievable. I couldn't believe what I was seeing at the outset of his campaign about all this, and still am very excited about it. But the Israel-Palestine thing, I don't know, just, one day Rabbi Shmuley showed up. I don't know where the hell he came from and how that happened or what the connection was there. All that stuff's above my pay grade, unfortunately. But I've voiced all these concerns. I've done it tactfully and respectfully, and I will say this: that when Bobby says that he does want people around him that he doesn't agree with on everything, he does mean that. That's not bullshit. That's a real thing. There are people around him that don't agree on things, and they tell him, and he listens, and he is a thoughtful guy. But I just, the Israel thing, I don't know what's going to happen there.
Does he realize how much support he could actually pull away from Joe Biden if he had a different position on that issue?
Yeah, well, I mean, certainly he's open to evolving, and when he learns things, he says, look, prove to me where I'm wrong and where I need to learn things, and if I didn't see it a certain way or I was missing something, I want to hear about it. So, certainly I'm hoping that he's going to be open to that. We still have a lot of campaign left. We got, what are we in February? So we got, another 9 months of this campaign. So certainly a lot's going to happen. But yeah, it's a bummer. I'm not even gonna lie. It is a bummer. And I wish, he had a different view on it and would, kind of stick up more for the Palestinians. And I've certainly voiced those concerns.
All right. Well, Eric, thank you for letting us know what was going down in New Hampshire. Where can people find you?
Yeah, you're welcome. It's been a lot of fun. Yeah, so I have a podcast with my twin brother. It's called Jackman Radio, and we're on Spotify, Podbean, Rumble, YouTube, iTunes, and Apple under just Jackman Radio. And then if you want to support our channel, patreon.com/Jackman Radio. $5 or $10 a month. You know about that Patreon hustle, Sabby. It helps. It keeps you going. And we certainly would like to grow that more. And then I'm on Instagram. My account is Senator Jackman, and then Jackman Radio on Instagram. And then Twitter. I'm on Twitter at Jackman Radio.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, Eric, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Let's do it again soon, Sabby, and keep in touch. And thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
All righty. Bye.
We'll see you.
All right, guys, that was the New Hampshire primary. So again, Donald Trump has already won. They called that pretty early. Let's go to some of the comments here in the chat. I still can't believe Joe Biden won by write-ins, man. That is wild. Thank you for the super chat, Alex. Did you know DNA tests are illegal in Israel? I heard that from someone before. Thank you for this as well. Has Elon been on Epstein's plane? I know. I think a lot of us have that question, right? Joey says Elon bought and captured the IP rights to hemp batteries and is slow rolling the industry out. Hemp batteries replace cobalt and more from the Congo. Thank you for that, Joey. Thank you, Naz. Naz was giving me the heads up. 52% Trump, 46% Haley. That was earlier on. Thank you, Nathan. It's a bit of an odd reason to vote for someone because you think the candidate is going to win. Interesting, Nathan. Thank you, 100% Black Roke. Thank you, Sabby. Thank you, NY Varsity Sports. Does this mean write-ins can set a precedent for the national election? Because if that is how they are playing it, you should run for president. Actually, Lucy, also known as Blue Moon Red Wine, that's a part of Indie News Network. She actually was trying to get people to run as a write-in candidate against AOC. And the plan was to get enough write-ins so that she would lose because there's just so many other write-ins. Thank you for this as well. I don't agree with RFK either, but we are not a one-issue nation. If RFK is not stopping people from criticizing him, I'm in. If not, I'm out. Thank you, Alex. RFK can win the election if he frees Gaza. That's what I'm saying. I really do believe that. But here we are. All right, we're going to go to our final story tonight. It appears that Briahna Joy Gray is being attacked yet again. This time she's getting attacked from Zionists. They put out a hit piece against her. Bree tweeted this earlier. I'm not going to stop telling the truth about Israel, certainly not because of some cry bully hit piece from a journalist with a very loose relationship with truth himself. So let's go ahead and get into this article, and I'll play a little bit of the video that I think actually caused the stir here. So yeah, they're coming after Bree. It says the Hill's online show Rising falls prey to host anti-Israel conspiracy theories. So now they're trying to basically give Bree the conspiracy theorist stamp. We all know how this goes. Rising a popular what happened? Rising, a popular online morning news and opinion show produced by The Hill, has long promoted itself as a unique forum of heterodox debate, not seen on other mainstream broadcasts, with two leading co-hosts from opposite ends of the political spectrum facing off on any number of hot button issues. The program, launched in 2018, has occasionally drawn scrutiny as an evolving cast of outspoken hosts on the populist left and right have courted controversy for amplifying fringe views. There's that word again, fringe. I told you a lot of times mainstream media, anything that's not status quo, they call fringe. So let's get to this part here about Brie. Since October 7 attacks, the show's most high-profile host, Briahna Joy Gray, a far-left pundit who served as the national press secretary on Bernie Sanders' 2020 presidential campaign, has repeatedly used her platform to downplay the violence, sharing commentary that some viewers have interpreted as defending Hamas actions. So let's interject here. What violence do they believe she's downplaying? They've talked about the violence on the show multiple times. Obviously, if you're going to compare what happened the day of that festival where Hamas did kill some of the people at the festival, if you're going to compare that to the 25,000 people that have been killed in Gaza, obviously there's no comparison there. You can't make this comparison of 1,200 people is the same as 25,000 people. Israel's response to this has been an over response. So I don't know what they're talking about there. It goes on to say violence is not a violation of international law. Gray said in one broadcast shortly after the attacks, resistance is not a violation of international law. So that's actually correct. You know, I mean, Brie was a lawyer. See, they think that people just don't know the law. More recently, Gray has sought to boost unverified claims that Israel is intentionally targeting hostages in Gaza, as she argued in a monologue aired on Wednesday. This is not just accidental killings in the fog of war, but seemingly a policy to prevent Israel from being in the position of having to negotiate the release of thousands of Palestinians who were imprisoned in Israel before October 7th, and now in exchange for their own Israeli hostages. So notice something here. When it comes to Palestinians being killed, mainstream media says that those claims are unverified. But all of these mainstream media pundits went around for days spreading the lie about the beheaded babies. So when the Israeli press says something, it's automatically considered to be verified. But when the Palestinian press says something, it's unverified until proven. And even when proven, they still say it's unverified. It goes on to say here, the 38-year-old progressive commentator has also criticized conflicting reports about decapitated babies as being part of a propaganda campaign to tarnish Palestinians as barbaric and to justify what she has called a genocide in Gaza, among other comments that have raised eyebrows among viewers. So when you're spreading a lie, something that was unproven, and then you have the United States president Joe Biden also repeating that lie and saying that he saw pictures of decapitated babies, yes, that is considered to be propaganda. I mean, this is really simple. In fact, this entire article is propaganda. But perhaps most troublingly to followers of the show who have expressed alarm over its recent direction, Gray, who has become unusually fixated on Israel in the wake of the attacks, has engaged in a concerted effort to cast doubt on Hamas' use of widespread sexual violence against women, the growing evidence for which she has continued to dismiss as inadequate. So I'm just going to say again, there was no forensic evidence in reference to those attacks, these supposed attacks. The Gray Zone has debunked this multiple times. I told you this entire article is propaganda. Zionists are asking what we believe the uncorroborated eyewitness account of men who described these assaults in odd fetishistic terms. Gray wrote last month on X, formerly Twitter, where she boasts a sizable following and frequently inveighs against Israel. Shame on Israel for not seriously investigating the claim of the assault. Again, what is wrong with that? What is wrong with that? Now, all of a sudden, it's wrong to ask for an investigation. In an episode of Rising earlier this month, Gray enlisted Max Blumenthal, a prominent conspiracy theorist. You see what they're doing here? Two things. Anyone who criticizes Israel or questions what Israel is doing, they're either anti-Semitic or they're conspiracy theorists who has spread misinformation about Hamas terror attacks in an effort to invalidate a recent New York Times investigation that established a broad pattern of gender-based violence on October 7th. So one thing I will say, I did see Max's talk in person when he came here to Boston. Max has said over and over again that one thing that we do know that is for certain is that Hamas did kill people at the festival. However, he said that these numbers have been exaggerated, and Israel itself in the beginning said it was 1,400 people. Then they kept rolling the number back. Next thing you know, then they said it was 1,200 people because some of the people that were killed by the IDF. That's why they kept changing the number. So there's that. Let's scoot down here. Joe Rubin, a progressive activist who worked as a Jewish outreach director on Sanders' 2020 campaign and has appeared on Rising, said he views Gray's efforts to deny the atrocities committed on October 7th as part of a broader pattern of anti-Semitic activity that has gained traction among left-wing critics of Israel since the attack. So criticizing the state of Israel is not anti-Semitic. Debunking propaganda and false reports is also not anti-Semitic. What's interesting to me is that they continue to say people are denying the atrocities that happened on October 7th. I just told you that Max Blumenthal multiple times has confirmed, well, we do know that Hamas did kill people on October 7th. Bree has not denied that. I watched these segments on Rising. I know she has not denied that. The problem is that the Zionists and the Zionist propaganda machine, which is embedded in mainstream media, doesn't want you to acknowledge what is happening to the Palestinian people. They want you to only focus on what happened to the Israeli people. They want you to focus on the 1,200 people and not the 25,000 people. That's the problem. You can't call yourself a progressive if you're saying anti-Semitic things. So here we go again, right? If you criticize the state of Israel, they're saying that it's automatically anti-Semitic. What's interesting, though, some of these same people, if this was the other way around, and if it was every time something was criticized in reference to Black people, and if we said that's racist, they would call us the woke mob. It's about the power structure in place. This denial of violence against women is devaluing Jewish lives. No. What is devaluing Jewish lives right now are the atrocities that are happening to the Palestinian people. Israel committing genocide against the Palestinians is actually hurting Jewish people. It's hurting Jewish people. It's not good for Jewish people. That's the thing that drives me crazy. Even as Gray's commentary has faced pushback from her libertarian co-host Robbie, a senior editor of Reason magazine whose objections to her views on the conflict have resulted in some notable shouting matches. Critics say the show has too often failed to provide a platform for dissenting opinion, leading some followers to give up on the program altogether. So it says Robbie declined to comment. It's really interesting. If you look at the comment section of Rising, of these segments, the comment section is largely in favor of criticizing the state of Israel for the genocide. So far, the only person that you've heard from in this article was that one guy, Ruben. It goes on to say Vanessa Santos, who leads Renegade DC, a public relations firm in Washington, said she had long defended the show and encouraged her clients to appear on the program if they were invited. I said time after time that what I personally like about the show is that they're bringing together people with different perspectives. It's a format that cable news networks have almost completely done away with. But following the Hamas attack, Santos said she has decided to no longer work with the show, claiming that pro-Israel clients whom she has pitched as guests have been canceled on, disrespected on air, or ignored entirely, experiences that she believes have shown the program is not interested in open and honest discord. Let's go ahead and change something here. Where it says pro-Israel clients, we're going to change that to Zionist. Let's continue. Rising used to be good, but it has become completely unserious with its decline accelerating in the wake of October 7th. This is coming from Santos, has relegated substantive political and policy discussions to Briahna's emotional outbursts and takes. What about the emotional outbursts and takes from Robbie? You see how I told you guys this before. This space is incredibly hostile towards Black women. I've been telling you guys this from day one. And demonstrates a painfully obvious obstinacy towards fair representation of viewpoint diversity. Santos isn't the only critic who has chosen to stop engaging with the show. One person who frequently appeared on the program before October 7th, speaking anonymously to avoid reprisals, confided to Jewish Insider that Gray's commentary has become so toxic as to preclude any future engagement. Gray would not respond for requests for comment. The Jewish Insider. So let me just remind you guys, this was also done to Kim Iverson in reference to Russia and Ukraine and in reference to the mandates. There were hit pieces against her too. Anyone, again, like I said, that goes against the status quo. Now, I want to show you part of the segment that I think prompted this article. It's the one Briahna Joy Gray new horrifying video details Israeli genocide. Let's jump in at this piece here.
For example, on October 9th, Israel's defense minister declared a complete siege on Gaza, barring electricity, food, water, and fuel on the grounds that Israel was fighting human animals. He went on to say that, quote, Gaza won't return to what it was before. We will eliminate everything. If it doesn't take one day, it will take a week. It will take weeks or even months. We will reach all places. President Herzog erased the distinction between militants and civilians, saying it's an entire nation out there that is responsible. It's not true. This rhetoric about civilians not aware, not involved is absolutely not true. Israeli Minister for National Security Ben-Gvir said on November 10th, to be clear, when we say that Hamas should be destroyed, it also means those who celebrate, those who support, and those who hand out candy. They're all terrorists, and they should be destroyed. The Israeli Minister of Energy and Infrastructure tweeted that all the civilian population in Gaza is ordered to leave immediately. Israeli Minister of Heritage said after a month of bombardment, quote, the north of the Gaza Strip, more beautiful than ever. Everything is blown up and flattened, simply a pleasure for the eyes. We must talk about the day after in my mind. We will hand over lots to all those who fought for Gaza over the years. That's him openly announcing an intent to parcel out Palestinian land to the soldiers who destroyed it. The Israeli Minister of Agriculture announced, quote, we are now actually rolling out the Gaza Nakba. Deputy Speaker of the Knesset and member of the Foreign Affairs and Security Committee said, now we all have one common goal, erasing the Gaza Strip from the face of the earth. Israeli Army reservist Major General Gloria Elon wrote, "People should be told that they have two choices, to stay and to starve or to leave." He later told a newspaper that the only way to see the hostages alive again was to, quote, create a severe humanitarian crisis in Gaza.
See, these are some of the things that I think prompted that article, because what Bree is doing is she's using Israel's words against itself. I told you this before. Israel's worst enemy is itself. The rhetoric from Netanyahu, the interviews with Mark Regev and other Israeli officials where they've made these statements that are not even covert. They're actually overt, telling you what they want and what they intend to do. So she used their own words against them.
He's repeatedly called for Gaza to be made uninhabitable on social media, addressing the controversy around the Al-Shifa hospital bombing. He said, quote, "I hope that the head of the CIA got an explanation of why this is necessary and why the U.S. must ultimately back even an operation like this, even if there are thousands of bodies of civilians in the streets afterward." These quotes go on for pages and pages and pages in South Africa's petition. Now, even if you discount these admissions, Israel's claim that it does not intend to permanently displace Gazans are undermined by the choice to destroy 60% of all housing stock in Gaza, including by conducting controlled demolitions. One might ask whether there's a real threat of Hamas hiding in a given building if soldiers have time to set charges, walk away a distance, and blow up a building while recording it for social media. The infrastructure and foundations of Palestinian life have also been deliberately targeted, according to the petition, including court buildings, legislative buildings, the public library, universities, Christian and Muslim religious sites, museums, and the Central Archive containing thousands of historical documents and national records.
And all of the hospitals.
Moreover, reported plans to flood the tunnels of Gaza with seawater may have the effect of contaminating Gaza's aquifers and soil for the long term, undermining the ability to grow any crops there, literally salting the earth like medieval armies, making the land uninhabitable. Reports that Israel is in talks to export the Gazans to the Congo also don't exactly scream right of return. Now, the South African report also notes the consequences of Israel denying health care to Gaza, specifically citing 5 premature babies that were left to die and to decompose in an ICU, along with 40 kidney patients at Al-Shifa Hospital. Pregnant women are undergoing cesareans without anesthesia. Limbs are being amputated without pain meds. Over 1,000 children have lost either one or both legs.
Not to mention, see, this is the piece, or one of the pieces that's really important when she's talking about the injuries and the fact that Israel destroyed all of the hospitals. So obviously they don't have the medical equipment that they need. They don't have anesthesia. So this is really important, right? So check this out. One of the most damning pieces of evidence is when Israel told people in North Gaza to move south because the war was going to take place in North Gaza, and then they started bombing South Gaza as well. Another damning piece of evidence is when they gave them exit points to go to get out of harm's way, and then they bombed those exit points. And these things were all on video. So Israel has shown time and time again that the sole purpose is to rid the land of the Palestinian people. Hamas is the convenient excuse, because as long as you do have some type of resistance that is rising up there, obviously they can point to them and say, that's what we're trying to weed out. Meanwhile, it's very obvious to the world what Israel is really trying to do, and that is ethnically cleanse the land.
Infectious disease is spreading as there are hundreds of Palestinians per every remaining toilet, and sewage is running in the street. Even the dead aren't allowed to rest, as the South African report cites an allegation that Israeli bulldozers, quote, excavated and exhumed a hospital mass grave on December 16th, only to, quote, drag the bodies with bulldozers and then crush them. Now, after reading all this, John Kirby, Biden's National Security Council spokesman, says he's unpersuaded.
As you know, you dismissed a few days ago the case that brought by South Africa against Israel at the ICJ. Did you read the indictment? And if you did, do you believe that cutting off water, electricity, and fuel on a civilian population does not constitute a war crime by itself, nothing else?
Yes, I read the indictment, and as I said, and we stand by what we said about this. We find it without merit, and we find it counterproductive, and I'll leave it there.
See, anytime it's an accusation against Israel, all of a sudden John Kirby is like, well, I don't know about that, or we haven't found that to be true. When it was obvious, there were reports that the electricity had been cut. Obviously, later on, it was reported that they weren't allowing food to come into Gaza as well, that they had cut off forms of communication. This includes internet, by the way, because they're trying to silence the people and silence information from getting out, because the world was seeing what was happening via social media. So the thing is this. Basically, what you have here is John Kirby, the Biden administration, this country in general, our government, running cover for Israel's crimes. That is what is happening. And again, as we all remember, this is all connected to the money. So if you have so many politicians that are in bed with the Israeli lobby, this is what you get as a result. This is why I continue to say that AIPAC shouldn't even exist. You shouldn't have an organization in this country that is doing bidding for another country abroad. That's why JFK said that organizations like AIPAC should register as a foreign agent. So you have to pay attention to these types of things.
Now, if South Africa wins before the ICJ, it could lead to Israel being enjoined from conducting further genocidal acts. But that injunction would be temporary. The next step would be a trial process that could take years. Now, America has a long record of dodging accountability on the international stage. As journalist Abby Martin noted, America is so adverse to accountability that George Bush passed a law known as the Hague Invasion Act, which would allow the U.S. to invade the Netherlands to prevent America from being charged with war crimes. With no way to enforce the ICJ's decision, it's worth noting domestic efforts to force Biden to end his support for Israel's siege, which could not continue without U.S. support. Bernie Sanders.
And we'll just pause it there, and then they get into domestic resistance and accountability is necessary. And I believe it was this piece that was the problem, that they had a problem with, because she listed all the things that Israel has done in reference to evidence to prove that Israel is actively committing genocide. And that's why they have a problem. So what did they do in that article? Let's think about some things. One of the things that they did is they tried to use the angry black woman trope against Bree, lashing out her behavior. Robbie screamed at Bree on that show multiple times. I would say way worse than Bree has. So they used that. They used the conspiracy theory trope. And then they tried to use the excuse as some of the people were afraid. So they decided to either leave the show or they decided not to watch the show anymore. But they could only name two people. The other guy was someone who was a guest on the show, but they could only reference two people. You go to any Rising video right now about Israel and Gaza and look at the comment section. Most of the comments are in favor of a ceasefire and ending the genocide of the Palestinian people. But when they wrote that article, they only presented two people in front of you in that article. That's an exaggeration. And that's done on purpose to try to make it seem like things are way worse than they actually are. They did the same thing to Kim Iverson. It was the Daily Beast who did it. Different issue, but the same thing. They were like, one of the employees at Rising said, da 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 da. One person all of a sudden equaled people at the Hill aren't happy with her. Exaggerating. So they're making these hit pieces against people. This is how far the Zionist propaganda and the narrative is willing to go. This is what they'll do. Let's see if we can get her removed from the show. Okay. And then you'll just have to replace her with another left voice who's also going to have the same position. You can't silence all of us. This is the thing, guys. They can't silence all of us. So they try to take out the big wigs first. They try to come after them first. There are so many people that are very knowledgeable on this issue that have been to Gaza, that have been to Israel, that have been to the West Bank, echoing the same things that Bree is making. Some of them have lost careers because of it. Norm Finkelstein can't go back to Israel. This is how powerful Zionism is. And this is what people need to see. That type of control, that type of power is incredibly dangerous. That's why you got Elon Musk over at Auschwitz instead of in Gaza. They got to him too. And you see, they take out the university presidents. It was never really about plagiarism. That was just an excuse to get them out of there. It was because they would not bow to the Zionist agenda. That's why they're gone. The plagiarism thing was just a distraction. So now they try to find ways to smear her and attack her. It's very sad. It really is. But you have to be firm in your position. And Bree said earlier in this tweet, she said, I am not going to stop telling the truth about Israel, certainly not because of some cry bully hit piece from a journalist with a very loose relationship with truth himself. So what people have to understand is that Bree is going to be a target, not just because of Israel and Gaza, but also because she was Bernie Sanders' press secretary, and she said that she would not be voting for Joe Biden. She would not be supporting Joe Biden. So ever since then, they kind of see her as a target because she's not going along with the status quo. Not everybody want to take that smoke. And sometimes people have lost things because of that. I'm willing to bet you that Bree has probably lost opportunities in reference to her career because she took that position. Not everybody's willing to do that. And I think you can look around and you can see who's not willing to do it. This is why people like Crystal and Kyle will still tell you what I'll still support Joe Biden because of all the good things that he did. They'll call out the genocide and stuff, but they don't want that smoke either, hun. They don't want that smoke. They don't want no hit pieces on them. Not everybody can do it. Not everybody can put up with it. But that's what they'll do. Why do you guys think we'll cover this Thursday? Why do you think Sam Cedar, Humanist Report, all these people that said they were progressive, which I told you they're just liberals who want health care, why do you think they're out there telling people to support Joe Biden? Why do you think so? Because they don't want that smoke. And they want that centrist liberal money still coming in their pockets. That's why. It takes a real one. It takes a real one to break away and tell you, no, actually, I supported Jill Stein in 2016. It takes a real one to do that. And you look around, a lot of the people that did that are nowhere to be found now. They find ways to silence these people. I'm not kidding, man. So you have to be strong and you have to stand firm in what you believe. And they're going to throw all kinds of things at you. All kinds of things. And I'm telling you why. That's exactly why some people realized it was a lot easier and a lot more profitable to take the centrist position, to take the moderate position, to go along with the status quo so they don't rock that boat. That's your David Pakman. That's your TYT. That's your Humanist Report. That's all the people who were a part of this Bernie movement that decided to just go with Democrat establishment because it was more profitable and because it was easier. So think about that, folks. Think about that. I know some people have been blackballed. Thank you for the super sticker, Trash Panda. Thank you, NY Varsity Sports. I don't always agree with Bree, but she never ever went with a story she did not have solid info on. Bree should be thanking them. Streisand effect. Thank you, Naz. Thank God for people like Bree. Appreciate her so much. Very courageous. Thank you, NY Varsity. Propaganda rule number 1. If Bree or Max wanted to debate you on this, just say no. I don't want to give them a platform. Bunch of cowards. JK says Robbie is white supremacist in my view. Most of the comment section on Rising agrees with Bree. You can count the few who agree with Robbie. Interesting. I don't know if I would call Robbie a white supremacist, but thank you for the super chat, Nas. Pedophile Dershowitz interview may have also prompted this attack. That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. JB says keeping your integrity costs a lot, but it's worth it in the end. Thank you for the super chat. Alex, Briahna Joy Gray is the sexiest woman alive. Alex, you've been very blunt with us tonight. Very blunt with us tonight. All right, guys, that's all I got. That's the show. It is what it is. I'm not here tomorrow. I'll be back Thursday. Let's get that comment on Rockfin. I think there's one on Rockfin that I can pull up. Thank you for the tip on Rockfin, JVB. I'll stop now and let someone else comment. Thank you for that. Thank you. And thank you for the super chat, Marvin. Thanks, Sabby. You and Bree are probably on ADL list. Whatevs. It is what it is. All right, guys, that's it. I hope you enjoyed the show. Again, off tomorrow. I'll be back here Thursday night. If you haven't had a chance to do so, go ahead and smash the like button. If you're new, don't forget to sub and share. Other than that, I'm out of here, folks. See ya. Wouldn't want to be ya. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.